Hey, everybody, welcome to today's live stream here at the Folke Institute. I am super excited. My name is Selena Conmackey. I am one of our hosts here, and this is Anna Larson, the other co-host, and we're super excited. Tell us a little bit more, Anna.
We are super excited. Now, if this is your first time tuning in to the Folke Institute live stream, we are hosting these to share more about what the Folke Institute is doing and bringing important conversations to you about how you can grow personally and professionally, build stronger workplace teams, have conversation on DEI initiatives and other topics that your organization and you personally just really need to be thinking about as a human being. And today's topic we're so excited about is about neurodivergence. And we have a really special guest that is going to be joining us today.
Yes.
So, I think we can just even jump right into it.
Let's do the bios, but I know I'm going to tell you, we are so excited. And we spent a moment backstage with our guests, along with Dr. Carrie, just loving on this person and just kind of just sharing admiration for such a fabulous young mind. And let's do our bios, and then we'll share even more. So let me bring that up, and we will go ahead. I'll go ahead and read a little bit about Dr. Carrie. If you do not know who this fabulous woman is, shame on you. Just kidding. She is fantastic. She is the CEO and founder of the Folke Institute. She's a thought leader, researcher, educator, and trusted advisor in organizational development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, and coaching. She founded the Folke Institute in 2004 to further the impactful work she was doing. There is a huge list of wonderful things that Dr. Carrie has done that I won't always read because she's just amazing. So our next guest that we've brought on.
We are so excited to welcome on today Dr. Carrie's granddaughter, Bliss Spell. She not only is she her granddaughter, but she is the creator of Love Day. We are going to have a conversation about this because Love Day is kind of that conversation is what spurred bringing Bliss onto the show. But let me just tell you a little bit about Bliss. She is a Black autistic 13-year-old. She loves all things creative and is passionate about the rights of marginalized groups, specifically neurodivergent and queer communities. Okay, now we're talking about a 13-year-old here, right? I have a 14-year-old daughter. So I am so impressed and love the passion that Bliss is bringing to today's conversation.
Yes. I want to say before we bring those two up, right? We were introduced to Bliss via a video that her grandmother sent to the team. And, sometimes when somebody sends you something and you're like, oh, you know what I mean? Because they just love we all love our kids and we think they're the best thing in the world. The feedback that came back after watching the video was like, I want to be Bliss when I grow up. I'm 47 and she's 13. I want to be her because she is so well spoken and just I know you felt this too, but just knowing this is the next generation,
yes,
makes me so hopeful and so excited. You know what I mean? Because that is exactly what I want to see happen. Just that type of people that are going to be leading.
Absolutely.
So, without
that is, yes, that is exactly the way I felt when I saw the video as well. So well spoken, so smart. I mean, just had the ideas, just the pure logic and the inclusiveness of what she was saying. It was a speech that she was giving to, I think, for her school because she was the number one student, I believe is what it was. But anyway, okay, we could go on and on about how we feel about Bliss, but we want you to meet her. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and bring Carrie and Bliss up. Let me pull them right now. Hi, Carrie. And hi, Bliss.
Hi, everybody.
You're muted. Yeah.
Dr. Carrie, let's have you unmute. And can you, in your best grandma way, tell us a little bit about Bliss before we just get started from your perspective?
I just need to unmute
Yeah.
myself. I will be happy to do that at any opportunity that I get to talk about Bliss. I will do that. She's an amazing human being. She came to the planet with a goal, with an objective. I mean, we've seen that. I've seen this. I'm around her frequently, even though I live on the East Coast. She's on the West Coast. I travel. I make sure that I see them, and she can attest to this. Every special event, every birthday, and sometimes just because I make sure that I go to visit, and watching her from the time she was a baby, and how she was so persistent and focused. Whatever she's decided to do, she does well. One example I think of right now, when they were living in New Zealand, she actually, at 3 years old, she used to lay her clothes out on the floor. Okay, her outfits to go to wear to school. Now she used Pinterest. Okay, I don't even know how to use Pinterest. But at 3, she was doing this, and she only buys things that coordinates with what she wants to wear. She has a vision of who she is. She projects that in her dress as well as how she communicates. So I'll just say that much about her.
I love that. Because you know what it does? I feel like it embodies kind of what Selena and I were saying when we saw this video, right? It is very clear who she is. I'm going to talk directly to you, actually, Liz. It's very clear who you are and what you stand for and what you find important in life. And that is something very, very unique. So major kudos to you. And we're so excited to have you on here today, sharing your thoughts about something that you're so passionate about. But before we jump into neurodivergence, I want to jump back to what Carrie was saying about 3-year-old Bliss. Okay. So, Selena, can you pull up that slide on Love Day?
Okay, so as you all know, every month we feature something, a quote that Dr. Carrie and the Folke Institute kind of want to put out there. And so this is a quote: "Appreciation can make a day, even change a life. Your willingness to put it all into words is all that is necessary."
Yes. So 10 years ago, when Bliss was 3 years old, when she's laying out these adorable outfits that Carrie is talking about, she decided there needed to be a new day that celebrated all of the people that you love. Now, there was already a holiday for moms and dads and grandparents and partners, but she saw this opportunity to recognize and honor people in our lives that just simply needed to know that we love them. And so July 21st became Love Day. And Love Day at the Spell household became, I guess, an international holiday because you've lived all around the world, right? So Bliss, let's just start with this concept. At 3, what was it about Love Day? Why was this important to you? What brought this about?
Well, this is a very core memory for me. I remember being in New Zealand and being that young, and I was making something with my brother. And I was like, I want to give this to my parents. And at that time, there didn't seem to be a holiday for me that I could easily access. I couldn't go to the store and buy a gift for my parents, but I still love to make things. And I was like, you know what? There needs to be a holiday for this, for me to just be able to share something that I'm passionate about with someone I love and I care about. And that's how Love Day started. And over the years, it has just continued to evolve for me, where even the years where I'm not giving gifts, it's just a good reminder that there is a lot of love in the world and it's in constant circulation. There's an abundance of it. And when you make a point to share the compassion with the people around you, you realize that. And I think that's a really important, a really special thing. And I just remember those moments. It creates a lot of great memories. And yeah, it still means a lot to me.
One of the things I love most is that you are embodying what your grandmother has been doing for her entire lifetime. Like your whole work, Carrie, is centered kind of around what Bliss just said. Like, I'm sure it made you super proud, first of all. But tell us what are your feelings about what Bliss did at that toddler age of 3?
Well, what was interesting was I was in New Zealand with them at the time, and it was just such an incredible celebration. And we have photos from that. If I had thought about it, I would have brought one on the photos. And we had sunglasses on, and she had the sunglasses with the hearts, So it was just really a celebration. And it does. And even as she speaks about it now, it just really makes my heart full, because you're right. That's what my work is all about. And to actually have someone in my bloodline, my lineage, and and I can assure you, my son and my daughter-in-law are like amazing people, because they create the container for Bliss, and also her brother, my grandson Brazis. Also, my son's name is Brazis as well. So they create the container for them to continue to grow and develop and evolve without any barriers there, and they ensure that the barriers do not exist. They keep that, which is absolutely amazing, and that's what love is all about, and parenting is all about. We get it right, and some things, you both are parents, and there are probably people listening that are also parents. We kind of like, it's there's no manual, this is how you should parent. But what we do is, when we come from our heart, and and our intuition, is how we create, and we see the manifestation. I see the manifestation in Bliss, and the fact that it is, that God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, the thing that I'm so passionate about and that I do has come through my lineage, and I know that it will live on. That's what I should say at this point.
Absolutely. I mean, on top of all of that, it absolutely, I mean, that generational, but just it's what Selena was saying earlier, right? You see this hope and this amazing upcoming generation of workforce, not just workforce, but human beings, right? That are going to start to shape our economy, our political mindsets, our social justice mindsets, all of the things that are happening in the world. And I love that you started at age 3 with people just need to know that they're loved, which is a huge foundational thing that a lot of people haven't experienced. So anyway, Love Day's tomorrow, right? Bliss, tell us about celebrating Love Day. How do you do it?
Yeah, well, I think it looks different every year. For me, tomorrow, we're just going to be hanging out at home. Unfortunately, my brother's not home with us, but I think because Love Day is about love in all of its forms and appreciation for everything, for me, a lot of the times, even when it's not a huge celebration, it's just taking time to just appreciate things, spend time with my parents, spend time with my family, probably texting my friends and, letting them know that I care about them. And I think that's what I love about it so much, is that it can look different every year. And I have received some gifts all the way from my grandma in Texas. And yeah.
I love that. I love, coming from Hawaii, and Dr. Carrie and Anna hear me say this all the time, Bliss, right? We're a very celebratory culture. We love to love, like, you know what I mean? We love to just kind of do that. And so I think just like getting to kind of talk to the creator of Love Day, and then to hear the backstory, and to hear, like, you're in New Zealand, that is a family member of Hawaii. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I purposely actually switched into heart earrings specifically because I just wanted to make sure I evoked love out when we talked about it today. So, but thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important. I think we'd love for people to kind of tell us in the replay, how are you going to celebrate Love Day? And make sure you mark this in your calendar. Make this your national holiday as well. So,
absolutely.
I guess, shall we move into our first set of questions, Anna?
I do believe we should. Okay, so today's topic that we wanted to really focus on is neurodivergence. But before we really start to talk about that specifically, let's identify what that is and what that means. And so between Carrie and Bliss, Bliss, let's start with you. But if you can give us kind of like what is neurodivergence to you?
Yeah, so neurodivergence is an umbrella term that can serve as an identity marker for a lot of people, including myself. And being neurodivergent simply means that one's brain development looks different than what we'd label a neurotypical brain, or what's considered the standard. So there's a lot of things that fall under this: developmental disabilities and intellectual disorders and things like that, things like autism and ADHD.
Carrie, what would you add to that? Oh, you're muted again, Carrie.
Here we go. Okay, actually, for me, it's interesting when I think about neurodiverse people. The simplest term I could define is that people that are wired differently from neurotypical people. Neurotypical people is the people that we talk about, like the average individual. And the other thing that I would say is that knowing that neurodiversity is basically a social ideal that's based on biological fact. And that is that the human brain is one of the most complex parts of the human body, and every brain is different. Neurodiversity is about what we should mean instead of separating people because this is normal, this is abnormal. Neurodiversity is about accepting variation. So I mean that to me is in its simplest term. And obviously, as we continue to have conversation, I'll talk about how we are thinking about this and implementing this into organizations and getting organizations to begin to acknowledge and recognize, as well as our schools and how they treat. We all grew up in an environment where this was not even a concept. Either you fit in what we call normal or normal typical people, or there was something, you were outside or you were on the fringes, and they had all sorts of names for that, as opposed to accepting like the richness. Again, as you know, we do so much work in inclusion, the richness of having that diversity.
Yeah. This slide that Selena had shared, the third one on there. I'm sorry, Selena, can we pull that up just one more time? The third one on there is something that I really, really appreciated seeing on here, that neurodivergence is an identity, not a medical diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And that people may adopt the identity with or without labels. And I think that's so important because you can't apply it to somebody without their acceptance of it, correct? And
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. So Bliss, how has this played a part in your life so far?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that we get to define our own identity. Just going back to what you said, and I know that how I refer to myself and how I go about the world might look different from someone else who may identify as neurodivergent. So I think I have, the medical diagnosis, and that's, part of my life as well. But another huge part of my life is what I make of that and how I carry myself throughout the world and basically how I go about things. I know there's another thing on there, just nothing about us without us. It's so important to include people in the conversation when these identity markers and labels come up. It's important you understand the perspectives of the people you're representing, and no two people will look the same, neurodivergent, neurotypical, or otherwise. So it's important to expand the conversation and talk to as many people as you can. That's why I love to speak out. I am starting to do that more, but it's important to hear each other, listen to yourself, hear yourself.
Yeah. I would, another one of the not about us without us comment that you said. And then I believe the very last bullet point also was about recognizing that it is linked to being both exceptional and being a disability, and allowing people. I mean, I think one of the biggest things is allowing neurodiverse people to speak for themselves. What do they need? What do they want? How does this, as opposed to talking about them, right?
Yeah.
Well, we should do this for a neurodivergent individual, as opposed to saying, Bliss, what would be beneficial for you as a neurodivergent individual, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think I really appreciated that Bliss also says, right? No two people are the same. So don't assume because I share if Bliss says, hey, these are things that resonate with me, don't just assumingly apply that to every other neurodivergent person. Have the conversation with them and make sure, right? Just have the conversation, I think, is like the most important part, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to add that, and that's one of the reasons when you think about the work that we do at TFI and we talk about inclusion, we are expanding the definition of diversity, okay, so that we're including, because what we were doing up to this point was we were talking about, people that had any type of physical and, of disabilities and such, but we weren't really looking at it in its entirety or in the wholeness of it. and understanding that in and of itself is as unique, just like you were grouping people together, like all people of African descent must do X. I cannot tell you the number of times I've been in environments where it's like, oh, Carrie, so how do Black people think? I don't know how all Black people think. I'm just like me. Or if they'll play music and go, oh, you must like this, or you must eat this food. No, I don't eat that. Again, because there's this putting everybody into like pockets. Now I understand that our brain works where we like to put things in buckets because it's easier for us to remember. We cannot put people in buckets. We cannot put people based on their race, on their nationality, on their gender, on their neurodiversity. We can't do that. And so that's where the whole thing, when you think about the tagline for the Folke Institute, is we teach the process of unlearning to learn. We have been taught put people in buckets and treat them a certain way. And we're saying that doesn't work, and it's not going to work in the world any longer. And like Bliss's generation, a generation that's coming up that's saying no, from a gender standpoint, from a neurodiverse standpoint, as well as all of the things that we talk about, religion and equity, like race and all of that. We're putting all of that in there. We're expanding that. And for a lot of people, it's uncomfortable because it does require unlearning and relearning.
Carrie, that was the best lead into our next question. We're going to leave you here and I'm going to throw it up there because I really think that just moving into this next thought, which is how does using the word or applying the concept of something being quote unquote normal make it harder for a neurodivergent person? And this is what you were just talking about, normalizing or putting people in buckets.
Well, because what we have done when we say normal, we have set a standard that we're measuring everybody by in terms of how they respond, how they act, how they don't act in schools, how you respond to your teachers, how you respond to the work that you receive, how you respond to your parents, how you respond to your friends. This is the box that we put out, and you should fit into that box. If you don't fit into that box, gee, there must be something wrong with you. And so what we're saying is that there's nothing wrong, because what we need and what we want is the diversity and the difference is what makes us such a beautiful array, because we see things differently. We get different perspectives. And I'll just slide into that. What happens in organizations? Do we need people that think exactly the same? We talk about like the biases where people are. We want people that think like us, that went to the same schools, that act like us, that work like us, and where does that get us? So the diversity of being able to look at, recognizing, acknowledging that the brain, when we think about the brain, and everybody's brain is different, and we're willing to listen and observe and create space for everybody to participate and to give you their ideas and their recommendations and their suggestions. That's when we move this concept away from normal, if you will, and it's about expansion, I think, is how I would summarize it.
Yeah. Bliss, how has this applied to your life? I mean, do you find people placing you in those buckets and just assuming you're a certain way when you share with them, that you're autistic, for example, right? Yeah. Because that was part of your bio. So when you say I'm autistic, do you find that people put you in this bucket of this is what's normal for an autistic person and then apply it to you?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stigma. The people I have told working through it myself, there's this idea from the media, a lot of shows and movies of how autistic people act. Mm-hmm. For a while, I was experiencing a lot of imposter syndrome because I was like, I don't see myself represented as an autistic person. This just isn't how I act. And I think in my friends, like the people I interact with at school, sometimes there is like a bit of fear of telling people and them assuming things about me. And this goes back to the whole idea of buckets, because the concept of normality just does not benefit anybody. There is no linear binary that any one person can stick to completely, because I may enjoy this one thing, but just because I enjoy this doesn't mean I don't enjoy something else. It goes all around. And when you are expecting normalcy, a standard from someone, especially a neurodivergent person, it's very harmful, because from childhood through adulthood, you're interacting with people who are judging you, even when they don't realize it, even when you don't realize it. And you realize, I'm not getting through this person, or I'm not meeting this standard. And over time, it just feels like, is there something wrong with me? Or why am I not being accepted? So when we broaden the spectrum, understanding more about each other, about neurodiversity, that's when it starts to get better. Because in my experience a lot, and just going through everything before I knew I was autistic, before I was diagnosed, I was so confused. And that forced me to mask, which is something a lot of neurodivergent people do. That's basically like concealing their neurodivergent traits to better fit in with normal people. And that's where it starts to get really harmful, because that masking, that hiding yourself, you are hiding, you're retreating into darker parts of yourself. And that can lead to a lot of mental health issues. So it's important that the idea of normalcy as we know it is replaced with acceptance and understanding that there is no one mind, there is no normal mind.
I want to share just I really appreciated that you just said, I have a family member that just, finally got a diagnosis of being autistic, and there was so much relief with that person, with my family, because they were like, now I know where I'm going. I understand where I'm at, but the word relief and just knowing, okay, and then the next steps. And I like that you said, right, about that. Just now my family members, I felt their identity was more cemented, if that made sense.
Yeah.
Because so I really appreciate it. And they're 16 and that's how they found out. And I think I really appreciate you saying what you just did, because I think that is not something that us adults think about, because we've had the conversation, Anna and I, of we were raised, even your grandmother, right, in this very binary world, that there is the unlearning, right, Dr. Carrie, that a lot of us have to do, just so that we that the word normal shouldn't apply to this category of people. You know what I mean? So anyway, see, Bliss, and you were 13? No way.
I want to just jump. I'm jumping a little off script. I'm sorry, but what you said really, it brought a thought up to me, right? I mean, when you do grow up in a certain way, right, and having to unlearn what normal should apply to. Actually, the word normal shouldn't even really exist. There is nothing normal, right? It's what you just said. There is no linear, binary, like straight line that everyone's supposed to follow. That doesn't exist really. So in helping other people understand you better, specifically, like, what are some of the things that you do to kind of break that and start that unlearning process when you are talking to people that start to stick you in a bucket or make expectations that are unfair or unjust?
Yeah, well, I'm still exploring that for myself, actually, but I think that definitely has started inwards. Selena, what you're saying about the next step, I think the next step is self-love and self-acceptance, because the more I learn about myself, the more comfortable I get in who I am, the more I'm able to be like, you know what, that's not true about me, and I want to let this person know. And I've been able to start doing that, and just when I hear something that doesn't resonate with me, I make sure that I correct gently. But yeah, that's what it looks like in my life currently. And I'm still growing and getting more confident in who I am and redefining people's beliefs.
Yeah.
I think that you are legit on the right track, though. And I know you're going to find it, because you are you're such a. I want to touch on one other thing, is when you brought up imposter syndrome, of that identity, right, of who you are, and just even that it hadn't ever crossed my mind how someone can say, hey, maybe I'm not enough, because the perception that the public puts out how I should be. I'm not that. And those are definite things to consider, which is why I love the training that your grandmother does with big corporations to help kind of dispel that. What they do will cause this reaction of imposter syndrome, of who you are, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, right, Anna and Dr.
Yeah. I mean, I want to throw Carrie into the spotlight for just a minute. Like, Carrie, what are some ways that people can be accepting of this kind of like gentle redirection that Bliss is talking about? Because sometimes it feels like I didn't mean it like that, right? You immediately become defensive. So what are some techniques that you use in your work with other people to support that understanding?
That's an excellent question. I just have to say that where Bliss is right now in terms of her awareness are the things that we're teaching, because many of the people that we work with were not raised during this time where this was a conversation that was even being had, or we didn't even have the language, and you both know what I'm talking about, to even have these conversations. So a lot of our work in organizations are working with people that, Bliss is talking about the imposter syndrome at 13. Okay, most people are just adults are in their 40s and 50s are beginning to recognize that this is a syndrome or something that they have dealt with. About 8 years ago, I did some research as part of my doctoral work on the imposter syndrome. And now it's become a very popular conversation that people are having. A 13-year-old is having that conversation. What does that tell you? I teach assertiveness, in response to your question, I teach assertiveness communication, and what I do in that, and also as part of our coaching, we are coaching people on how to comfortably express themselves. Of being assertive means it's sharing with people what your wants and needs and beliefs are in a direct and clear manner, while respecting the other person. Okay, it doesn't minimize the fact that you get to share your feelings, and you're not telling them that they should feel that way. All you're saying is respect me, for this is who I am, and this is how I feel. This is what I'm teaching adults right now. Okay, so when you think in terms of Bliss, and then being in an environment that's constantly being encouraged, and of course I've spent time with her mom, who's like a daughter to me. Okay, so I've spent time with her mom over 20 years, and my son, I raised him, so he was raised with these concepts. Okay, and so her mom, so they know me, and so this is what they're instilling in both of their children. It are these techniques, and to me, that's when I say that my work, I want our work at TFI to be sustainable. It's not about teaching someone something and they're not taking it back and using it and teaching their children. 30 years from now, I would want the children of the people that we're teaching to be sounding just like that too. Do you understand? But that's really, it's got to be some longevity. It's not about bring us in, let us teach and check the box, and that's it. But again, teaching those very tools about being assertive, and the difference between passive, assertive, and aggressive. And some people will come to a class and say, well, my family and my colleagues were wondering why I'm taking this assertiveness class, Dr. Carrie, because I tell people what's on my mind. And I go, do you really? Yes, I have no problem with that. Well, then you're aggressive. I don't care how nice you say it. If you say it in such a way where you're hurting the other person's feelings or shutting them down, that's aggression. So that's not assertive. And so many people don't even understand what the definition of assertiveness is. And then one of the things that we teach also wrapping up, Anna, is one of the things we teach is we give examples of how to say those kinds of things to people, how to express yourself in such a way where it's not being offensive or shutting the other person down. And at the same time, it's not shutting the most important person down, you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I threw up the next question because I felt like your answer was kind of flowing along that. How can you celebrate the uniqueness of people? And I think those three things you just put up, right? Like not being aggressive, being assertive. What's the third one, Carrie? Help me out. Like it just left my brain.
Passive. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and being passive, right? Like those are those three ideas right there. How can we apply that to to then celebrating and saying you are amazing exactly how you are, especially when we see that in the workplace, right? Because it's, you know, there some managers are like, get to work, get to work, get to work, and they don't want to celebrate uniqueness. They want to see productivity happen.
Yes, no, that's very true. The other thing is when you think about what we look at assertive, passive, assertive, and aggressive along a continua in terms of how we communicate. So you're like either at one extreme, which is passive, the other extreme is aggression. Assertiveness is in the middle. Now, one of the things I want to encourage people is that you want to be able to use all three, because there are certain times when you just need to be passive. Sometimes you just need to shut up. You know what I mean? Like you may disagree with something that someone is saying, but you don't have to defend yourself on everything. Well, that's not what I mean. No, it's fine. Sometimes you're just like, okay, thank you, I understand. You get to decide when you want to be assertive. And if you decide to be passive, guess what? You're really being assertive because you made the decision. See, it's that empowerment, that self-empowerment that Bliss mentioned. You empower yourself. You decide. When other people decide, or the situation or the circumstance decides that that's how you should behave, then you are being passive. Okay, so it's making the decision to do it.
I love that tie that you just put in there. When you make the decision, it becomes assertive because you're not allowing somebody else to force you into doing something or saying something or being a certain way. I love
fear of intimidation. And oftentimes when people are passive, they go from 0 to 60 to aggression. You know, it's like and then they just like go off on people, and you're like, what happened to that person? Well, you know, because they held it in, they suppressed it, which of course we know from a health standpoint, that's very unhealthy when you're not willing to express yourself and actually share. And that's where, you know, dis-ease and illness and all sorts of things, depression and all of those things will happen because we're not expressing ourselves and we're not owning it. I'll share with you real quickly. Once my husband said to me, my late husband said to me, we were talking about something. He goes, "Oh, you shouldn't feel that way." And you know what I said to him? I said, "Sweetheart, please do not minimize my feelings. Yeah, I get to feel any way I want to. Who gets to tell me how to feel?" You know what I mean? So I'm okay. But notice how I said it. Please do not minimize my feelings. In other words, this is how I'm feeling, and I'm owning it. I'm not asking anyone to agree with how I feel. I'm asking you to accept that these are my feelings, and I'm sharing them with you. You don't have to agree. Honor the fact that these are my feelings.
Yeah. That's a big switch, I think, for people, like that mindset.
Mm-hmm. But
it's unlearning.
Yeah, it's unlearned. And it does go back to like when you say that, right? And it's really how you feel, and you know you're giving that information out when you say, this is how I feel. You can't change how I feel. Like, you know, don't minimize, don't change it. I guess I'm trying to say, like, when you go back to the self-awareness thing, right? When you are aware in that way, how they react to you saying something won't matter as much because you know you feel right in your heart, or you feel that, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So
yeah. You own it. But it's similar to what Bliss was saying. Yep. Like the more she becomes comfortable with herself, and I see it every time I see her, every couple of months, I see the difference. And I shared that with her when I saw her last month. I see the difference where she's owning it. She's owning how she likes to dress. She's owning what she has to say. And Bliss, you can speak to this. I would venture to say that as we do that, there's such a sense of peace within ourselves. Would you agree, Bliss?
Yes, definitely. I think with a lot of things, recently, my discovery of the abundance mindset. And I think reaching that starts with yourself. And just loving learning about yourself. I can go back to all these memories I have where I'm feeling something towards someone else. I'm frustrated by something they're doing. And now later, fast forward, I understand things about myself, and I understood how I reacted, and I understood what that says about me. And I think that's such a big part of communication and expanding our networks when interacting with other people. Yeah, so it's a big part of that, just understanding yourself. Once you understand yourself, it's a continuous journey, but once you get more peace with yourself and contentment, then you can extend that to other people, and the other people you interact with, you by default have more compassion to give. There's an abundance of love and compassion and understanding and just acceptance. So when someone says, this is how I'm feeling, you can accept that. You can empathize. You can understand what they're feeling because you felt it yourself, or.
Are there specific actions or behaviors that you would say, be mindful of these things when we are talking about celebrating that uniqueness, right? Like kind of like the question that scrolling is saying, right? Celebrating that uniqueness or recognizing the uniqueness of that person and not giving it a good or a bad label, but just simply that this is who they are. Like, are there specific things that you would say, be mindful of this as you're interacting with other individuals?
Yeah, well, I can actually think of a specific thing right now. Can be a trait in neurodivergence, specifically autism, but like overstimulation, being in loud situations with a lot of people. And this where kind of stigma comes in, like, we're all introverts. I'm a very extroverted person. I love to talk, but I have moments where I'm like, I can't really handle this right now. I have headphones and I wear them a lot. I listen to music a lot. And the association is that I'm being rude and that I don't want to hear what people are saying. I think it's important to look out for those kind of tells where if the person is still appearing friendly, but they might kind of be in their own space, they might seem a little closed off. It's usually not about you. It is a lot of the time just about the person, the way they're processing things. I actually had a really special moment in my art class when school was going on. My teacher brought in her autistic son, and he was having a really tough time. He was like, "Mom, can you tell them to be more quiet for me, please?" And the fact that he was able to say that, I was just so happy for him, honestly. I had my headphones on, and my art teacher let me know he's wearing his headphones more. He feels more comfortable wearing his headphones now, and just letting the people around him know that he just needs a break, or he needs what he needs, whatever that may be.
So a lot of it comes down to not being afraid to share what you need as a neurodivergent person. And then on the other side, receiving that information and not thinking that it's not taking it personal almost, right? Like not seeing it as an attack or an affront or something negative necessarily. I love that.
It's just a basic understanding of the other person and knowing we're not all the same,
Exactly.
Bliss, I'm telling you, you are such a wonderful individual. And I know I can totally understand why Dr. Carrie, your grandmother, speaks so highly of you and just gushes over you. Because I think that I really cannot wait to see you at 20, at 30, at 40, because I just know. I just think things are just going to be so phenomenal. I mean, and I know we have like another question, and I don't know if we applied that kind of in some of the discussion for how Dr. Carrie can apply that to organizations and workplace. I don't know if we want to share that.
Well, I think we kind of did, Carrie. I think you kind of touched on that a little bit when you were talking about the passive and assertive and aggressive, and even just what Bliss was just saying about accepting information and how you accept it, and giving information and making sure that you're aware of that. I think I think the last question I would throw out there, just kind of the final thoughts question, would be more about like building inclusive communities, right? And how can what can they start doing now to build that inclusive community where recognition of these unique individual traits, whatever label is applied to that, is happening? Because I know this is something you're super passionate about, Bliss, like across multiple arenas. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I have 3 things: listen, learn, and then educate. I think those are very important when it comes to any group. Listening, what I was kind of saying earlier about, nothing about us without us. Listen to those people. Take time to learn. I think that is such an important thing. Learning, it helps with the fear or hesitation or judging. Once you learn, understand what's real, come back to the balance and the reality, and then you can continue. And then the last bit, educate, pass it on, keep the cycle going, help more people in your community understand and continue to learn with each other.
I love that.
I
Carrie,
feel like this is 13-year-old Dr. Carrie. Like, I feel like this is what Dr. Carrie was doing when she's 13. I really do. I mean, oh
right? Do you get this a lot, Bliss? I just have to know. Do people say you are just like your grandma?
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. Also, we had a grandparents and special friends day. I was glad that my friends got to meet her because I'm so proud of my grandmother. Like, such a big inspiration. Watching her graduate too was awesome.
Oh.
Awesome.
That's right. She was at my commencement. She actually saw me get my PhD.
That's awesome. Amazing.
Yeah, I think getting to get to experience like the successes of what your family members do is such like a great integral. It can make an impact, right? Like into what you do, Bliss, right? Going back into school, like, hey, I saw my grandma like get her PhD. This is what I'm going to do. I'm adding this more. I'm going to have more pep in my step and more zest. And I don't know how you can, because I swear you are a twin in your own uniqueness, but you are just a wonderful radiance of your grandmother. So, okay, wait, Dr. Carrie, we're going to ask you the same question.
Well, actually, I want to say that first and foremost is like, I'm just really thrilled that Bliss is here, and my role in my life, certainly with my family and just in general, the work that I do and my commitment is that I support everyone in my family, Bliss, my grandson, my son, my daughter-in-law, and all of the people, that it's really create that I can be an example of being the best version of yourself that you can be. Because at the end of the day, I don't want you to be be going to a certain field or do a certain thing. I just want, again, in a sport and supporting people in organizations and the people that I coach is really about finding that part of you and building that and becoming that, because that's, to me, is what real freedom is all about, is that knowing self and being able to have the confidence and the ability to step into whatever it is that you chose to be in your life. And complaining and whining and all that other stuff is like Bliss said earlier, it's not about that. It's not about what's happening externally. It's what's happening internally, strengthening that and then using that. And as it relates to organization, most managers, I want to say, and not all, I want to say many. I'll say many managers are familiar with the advantages in organizations that an organization can gain from diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, and the training as it relates to gender and culture and race and all of that. What we're doing now and working in organizations to help them understand the benefits of neurodiversity, because it's similar and it's much more direct. Because again, as I said earlier, neurodiverse people are wired differently than neurotypical people, and they bring new perspectives to a company's effort to create and to recognize it. So just that is more diversity that companies and organizations can tap into to succeed, and also the interaction with the people within the organization. Everybody learns, everybody grows, everybody learn to expand their concept of who we are, and that we're all different, and that we all have some portion that we don't fit into the normalcy, if you will, and being able to accept that in ourselves, because we're interacting with people that are accepting it in themselves and they're already labeled as neurodiverse. That's what I would say.
I think this is why you are so well received, Dr. Carrie, in just every organization. You bring such an insight that a lot of leaders today running their companies need to have. I just can't say. You mesmerize me every time I just listen to you. That sometimes I'm. And actually, your granddaughter had the same effect on me. I was like, oh wait, we're hosting. I have to ask Bliss a follow-up question, or I need to. You know what I mean? I don't know. I loved the answer, and I love. I just loved. I want to make sure we're still honoring this time with Bliss here today. And I know we're almost at the hour, but I think that's what great conversations are, is that sometimes time just gets away from you and you get to enjoy the information. Bliss, what you said, the 3, listen, learn, and educate, I'm going to like put on a sticker because I think that is such a great tip for anything in what we do, right? The listening is the most important, I think, because listening to what other people have to say just helps you learn, right? Then you get educated. And I just think, oh man, you've got a good one, Dr. Carrie, for sure. You know?
Yeah.
Yes. Grateful and blessed, I have to tell you.
No,
And then look, and then our name is Bliss. So
I
there
mean,
you go.
So perfect.
no.
Perfectly named.
No,
Yes.
I think today, honestly, I'm just really grateful to be part of every conversation that we have had here at the Folke Institute. And I've just been Bliss. Honestly, it is an absolute honor to get to sit like in this little panel here with you, because I know, like I said, Anna and I are going to be like, Dr. Carrie, what's going on with Bliss this month? Where is she at? So we can follow your journey and just support you and celebrate you. Not just on Love Day, which is going to be tomorrow, and I'm excited to celebrate that, and but just in all the days, you know, that where you take yourself, and I just think it's going to be an amazing ride for sure.
Absolutely. So I want to throw out there that Carrie had put together a list of resources on neurodivergence that we are going to be sharing. We're not quite exactly sure where it's going to be housed at this point, but it is going to be coming out in our next TFI newsletter. We're going to make sure we have a link for everyone to be able to research a little bit more and do that process that Bliss was just talking about, right? Listening, learning, and educating. Yeah. So we want to make sure that we're offering those same resources. So I'm dropping the link to get onto our newsletter, our monthly newsletter, in the comments now. And if you get it, if you aren't currently receiving it, it's a once a month, and then we do another once a month that's like a blog and the upcoming live streams. So we would love to have you join us at any of our upcoming live streams. Grab that link, get on the newsletter so you can learn more about neurodivergence in the workplace, in your personal life, as an individual. I mean, all the things. Yeah. And thank you so much, Bliss. Selena kind of said it all, and I'm just nodding my head over here, but know that I'm echoing everything that she said to you today. We're excited to kind of see where you take us. And again, if this is a look at our upcoming generation, I am really excited about the future and what it's got in store for us. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, don't unshine ever. Yeah. No, but thank you guys. Dr. Carrie, as always, is there a last word, sign off before we go you'd like to leave us with?
No, just that I'm just thrilled and honored and grateful to the two of you, the work that you do in these live streams, and that we have the opportunity, and certainly to my granddaughter who's in California as I'm on the East Coast, that I'm sending you lots of love and light, and especially Love Day tomorrow. We know that we will be doing that, right? Absolutely. And to all of those that have the opportunity, that are listening now or have the opportunity to hear the video, that you actually listen and maybe take away some tip, at least one thing that you're willing to practice or do as a result of listening to this. Because as I said, it's one thing to have these conversations, which are very enriching, and I'm enjoying tremendously every single time we do this. To me, it's all about sustainability. What is this doing that's supporting you and doing something different as a result of listening? Not only just feeling good, what is one thing that you're willing, and that's my challenge to everyone that's listening. What is the one thing that you're willing to do as a result of hearing this live stream today? And for that, I say thank you.
Yes.
That's a great call to action, Carrie. Make sure that you tag the Folke Institute if you end up like posting something or doing something or recognizing someone with that call to action as your inspiration. We would love to see it and celebrate with you what you choose to do.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you again, Bliss. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We will see you all next month on our next live.
Okay, bye-bye.